بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم.
سيدنا ونبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين ومن تبعهم بإحسان إلى يوم الدين. أما بعد فأعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. ألف لام ميم أحسب الناس أن يتركوا أن يقولوا آمنا وهم لا يفتنون ولقد فتنا الذين من قبلهم فليعلمن الله الذين صدقوا وليعلمن الكاذبين. صدق الله العظيم. Alhamdulillah, brothers and sisters, we are going through these various different gems and Quranic principles for life. And we mentioned, at the beginning of every lesson and the beginning of every lecture, that the Quran is our guide, and the Quran, every single verse of it is a principle. It's something to live by. And if a person wants to see their connection with Allah, they should see their connection with the Quran. How your connection is with the Quran, that is your connection with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. If you want to gauge your relationship, what is my relationship with Allah? What is the depth of my relationship with Allah? Look at the depth of your relationship with the Book of Allah. This is that rope, this is that hablullah. As Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions in another verse, وَأَعْتَصِمُوا بِحَبْلِ اللَّهِ جَمِيعًا وَلَا تَفَرَّقُوا. Hold on to the rope of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The ulama mentioned that the rope of Allah, this is the Quran. So if we want to see our connection, our link, and the depth of our ta'alluq ma'Allah, our nisbat ma'Allah, look at your connection with the book of Allah. If we open up the Book of Allah only when people die and when people pass away, then that means you're an occasional worshipper of Allah. That's your connection, that's the depth of your relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That when somebody passes away, then you start, thinking and you start wanting to be a Muslim, so you open up the book and you start reading it at that time. And even that reading is not a reading for the sake of hidayat and guidance. That reading is because of cultural demand and cultural practice. It is not something that we read actually for the sake of hidayah. And this is an unfortunate thing. This is a very sad thing, that the Quran for certain people has only a cultural function. That when somebody dies, there's a Quran Khani and there's a Fatiha Khani, and then we open up the book of Allah for what? Not for hidayat even. Not to read it, to understand, to reflect, and to bring it into our lives and implement it. It is so that we can fulfill this requirement. It's to fulfill that requirement, the requirement that, if I don't do this, this is very bad culturally. It's the status quo. So understand that your religion and your deen and even the book of guidance has become for you just a cultural check on the box that you just check off. This is a very dangerous thing. And the Quran, the objective of it was this, that Allah Ta'ala says, كِتَابٌ أَنزَلْنَاهُ إِلَيْكَ مُبَارَكٌ لِيَدَّبَّرُوا آيَاتِهِ وَلِيَتَذَكَّرَ أُولُو الْأَلْبَابِ. This is such a book that it is blessed. It is Mubarak. It is blessed. But that's not the only thing that it is. It's not only restricted to the barakah. But what is it also? لِيَدَّبَّرُوا آيَاتِهِ. So that you may reflect over these verses. Wallahi, when you reflect over these verses, you become amazed at, the depth of this book. You become amazed at how one ayah of the Quran is the solution and can be the solution to so many of our problems in life. If we truly were to make tadabbur and reflect over this Quran. وَلِيَتَذَكَّرَ أُولُو الْأَلْبَابِ. And those who are the people of intelligence, they will take heed. They will take this Quran, they will take heed of this Quran. Right, so this is what it is, and this is why as we are, getting the barakah of its recital, it is an act of worship for a believer to read the Quran. And don't forget, there's also a secular perspective. I want us to be very, very careful about secular Islam. Do you know what is secular Islam? Secular Islam is that Islam that is devoid of spirituality. It is devoid of blessings. It is devoid of thawab. It is devoid of soul and spirit. Their concept, secular Muslims, is this, that the Quran is intellectual benefit. They say that if you read the Quran and you don't know the meaning, bekar. Pointless. I don't know why all these kids are memorizing the Quran. They don't even know the meaning. It's pointless. This is a secular Muslim. This is jahl. This is also jahl. This is also ignorance. I will tell you why. Because the Quran, right, the reality of the Quran has two functions. One is the spiritual aspect of it, and one is the intellectual aspect of it. We don't deny just by saying, okay, it's important for us to reflect upon it. It's important for us to think about it. But this does not now take away from the Quran the spiritual aspect, that for every harf of the Quran, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives you one hasana. This is a spiritual, the Quran and reciting of the Quran, knowing the meaning or without knowing the meaning, there is a spiritual barakah and blessing in that. When the Quran is recited in Arabic, for every harf of the Quran there is a hasana. Some people have asked me, Shaykh, you know, I read the Quran in English. I don't know the Quran in Arabic. I said, I'm very sorry to tell you, you need to upgrade. Quran 2.0. Yes, you need to come out of the reading Quran translations, and you need to come to reading and getting the barakah of the blessings of the Quran. The Quran was preserved in Arabic. The Dhamma, Fatha, Kasra, the Zair, Zabar, Pesh, the Alif, Ba, Tath, Alif, Lam, Mim, all of this that would Hafiz Sahib today, the one A and the U and the Un, the Qurra are correcting it immediately. That's not in English. You miss a and, or you miss a if, or you miss a but. Doesn't really make a difference. You probably wouldn't even know the difference in English. The miracle of the Quran is in the Arabic. The preservation of the Quran is in Arabic. English translations change. There's a dozen English translations. But the Quran is, and I'm not talking about the script. You have the Pakistani script and you have the, Arabic script. These are scripts. The actual Quran, there is no difference. You go east, west, north, south, anywhere. South Pole, North Pole. Everywhere you go around the world, it's the same Quran. The script is different. They write it a little bit larger and bigger, and they have more, diacritics, so that people that are non-Arabs will be able to read those words properly. But the actual word, the actual Quran itself, there is no difference, no matter which side of the earth that you go, even amongst the people that are non-Arabs. So when you recite the Quran in Arabic, what is the benefit of the Arabic recital? Qur'anan Arabiyyan ghayra dhi iwaj. Inna anzalnahu Qur'anan Arabiyyan la'allakum ta'qilun. We have revealed this Quran, an Arabic Quran, because the Arabic of it is the miracle of it. No language in the world is like the Arabic language. Today, the Torah that is written in Hebrew, the original Torah was not even in the Hebrew language. The original language of the scriptures that exist in the religions today are not found. They are non-existent religions. They're extinct languages. They're extinct languages. The actual language of the Torah, I was reading an article recently. Somebody said that the Hebrew that they are writing today, this is actually a transference, that the actual language in which the Torah was revealed was in Aramaic. The actual language of the Injil of Isa alayhi salam was Aramaic. It was not Hebrew. I was blown away that these languages which the scriptures were in were actually extinct languages. It's mind-boggling. And the Quran, exactly as it came from Sayyidina Jibreel to Sayyidina Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, preserved with the pure sanad from the people who exist today, the Qurra, all the way back to Sayyidina Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, Ubay ibn Ka'b and Zayd ibn Thabit and Sayyidina Abdullah ibn Abbas and all whoever are the narrators, Ubay ibn Ka'b and Zayd ibn Thabit, and the people that we know that have a sanad, goes back directly to the mouth of the Prophet ﷺ, to the talaqqi of Sayyidina Jibreel, to the dictation of Sayyidina Jibreel from the Lawh Mahfuz, that Allah Ta'ala, بَلْ هُوَ قُرْآنٌ مَجِيدٌ فِي لَوْحٍ مَحْفُوظ. From there, from the preserved tablet to Sayyidina Jibreel, to the blessed heart of Muhammad ﷺ, to the Sahaba, to now the people. Direct sanad, straight to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Where will you find this? And then you're telling me there's no benefit in this? This is secular, ignorant Islam, where they hold just the Islam, so when somebody tells you, what religion are you? I am Muslim. It's not a box that we check. There's a spirituality in it. There's a depth in it, that every harf that you recite is an act of worship. This is not just an intellectual benefit. I'm reading the verses of the Quran so I can debate with somebody. I'm reading the verses of the Quran so I can intellectualize. I'm reading the verse of the Quran so I can see scientific miracles in the Quran. Yes, that's all there. That's not the objective. That's not the only objective, is throwing hujjat in front of people. Where is your ruhaniyah? Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam stood with this Quran. Stood with this Quran until his Mubarak legs would become swollen. What Quran is this? Which Quran is this? This is that spiritual Quran. This is the Quran of worship. This is the Quran of, Allah Ta'ala says, وَالْقُرْآنِ ذِي الذِّكْرِ صَادِ وَالْقُرْآنِ ذِي الذِّكْرِ. This is the Quran that is a dhikr. This is the greatest dhikr. That when you are reciting it, you are making the dhikr of Allah Azza wa Jal. And the dhikr also means it is the reminder. It reminds you and it admonishes you. Tadhkirah. So, brothers and sisters, for every harf of this Quran, we stand with this Quran and we recite this Quran. And the Quran is an act of worship. And the Quran, when you recite it, it will be a shafa'ah for you on the day of judgment. In the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ, it says that إِنَّ الْقُرْآنَ وَالصِّيَامِ يَشْفَعَانِ لِلْعَبْدِ. That Quran and fasting will bear witness for you on the day of judgment. And the Quran will say what? The Quran will not say, I used to be read and I used to be like a debate. I used to be using these verses for debates or intellectual. He says, I withheld him from his sleep. The Quran will say, I withheld him from his sleep. Well, what does this mean? This means that you were worshipping with the book of Allah Azza wa Jal. The Quran was for our worship. The Quran was to be recited so that we can get ajr and thawab, and so that we can get elevated spiritually. That we are a spiritual people. We are a people who, what did we just do in this, subhanAllah, 20 rakats? So tiring, so heavy, so powerful, so majestic. It just tears you to pieces, right? When you're standing. It's like the most difficult workout. It's the most, hardest of workouts is this. This is the jalal of the Quran. This is the ibadah. This is the worship. This is, oh Allah, I am standing before you, reading your words in your presence. That when you're reading this Quran, you are in Allah's presence. You're speaking with intimate conversation with Him in the same words that He spoke to us. I am speaking to Allah and I'm conversating with Him in the same words that He has revealed to me. There's no other words more beloved to Him than His own words. With which words are you going to have intimate conversation with Him? With your own words. With these inferior words of ours. What words are more superior to conversate with Him than the words that came from Him directly? That is why it comes in a hadith that a person never came to me. A person never came to me with something more beloved to me than what came from me. And these words came from Him. So this is what I always say is the two sides of the same coin. It's the ilm of it and the barakah of it. That's why Allah says, Kitabun anzalnahu ilayka mubarakun. It is a book that Allah revealed to you. There's a lot of blessings in it. لِيَدَّبَّرُوا آيَاتِهِ. But then the other side of the coin, you should reflect over its meanings as well. So as a true Muslim, we don't just have the academic, right, intellectual aspect of it. We have the spiritual aspect of it, the blessing aspect of it, the worship aspect of it, and then the ilmi and the academic and the intellectual is there. We don't restrict it to one. So with that being said, this verse that I wanted to mention, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is giving us a usul and a principle, that we will be definitely tested in life. That when you say, I am a mu'min, when you say, I am a believer, you will be tested in your faith. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says at this Surah Al-Ankabut, ayat number 2 and 3, that حَسِبَ النَّاسُ أَن يُتْرَكُوا. Do people think that they're going to be left to say that we believe? أَن يُتْرَكُوا أَن يَقُولُوا آمَنَّا. That they'll be left to say, we are believers. وَهُمْ لَا يُفْتَنُونَ. And then they're not going to be tested to see their true, what is in their hearts. Do they truly believe? وَلَقَدْ فَتَنَّا الَّذِينَ مِنْ قَبْلِهِمْ. And we had tested the people who came before them. فَلَيَعْلَمَنَّ الَّذِينَ صَدَقُوا وَلَيَعْلَمَنَّ الْكَاذِبِينَ. And we made it known, we made it manifest. Who are the people who are true in their claim of faith? And who are the people that are liars in their claim of faith? So these verses highlight a very important thing, is that when adversity comes in front of us and difficulty comes in front of us, when we know this ayah, we know that, okay, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is testing me. When we know that difficulty is going to come my way, we know that, okay, now I am ready. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is testing me. Like I mentioned last night, that sometimes the ultimatum will come in our life. Either you choose your deen or you choose something else. You choose to compromise on your faith, or you choose to take the way of your faith. That moment will come in the life of every single one of us. That are you going to compromise? Are you going to give in? So that when that situation comes, like a person, many of our brothers and sisters who enter into Islam and they embrace Islam, don't think that Islam is going to be the solution to all of your issues. It could be that your problems will intensify after you become a Muslim. Before you were a regular guy, you didn't have the name Muhammad or Ahmad. Now that you've become Muslim, maybe, now you've changed your name or not, or you practice as a Muslim, or you believe as a Muslim. Understand that a new test will begin for you. Islam in and of itself, and the deen and iman in and of itself, this is a declaration that I am loyal to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And I have accepted this. And just like the Anbiya alayhimus salam, they were tested, and the prophets of Allah were tested, and the best of humanity was tested, and Jesus and Moses and Abraham, they were tested. The best of humanity, they will be tested in their faith. So what? For what reason? So that He can make it evident who are true in their claim and who are the ones who are fake in their claim. In another verse, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that وَلَنَبْلُوَنَّكُمْ, we will most definitely test you in this life. بِشَيْءٍ, but the test that you will be tested with will be very, very little. It'll be minimal in comparison to what is the tests of the next life. مِنَ الْخَوْفِ, fear. وَالْجُوعِ, hunger. وَنَقْصٍ مِّنَ الْأَمْوَالِ وَالْأَنفُسِ وَالثَّمَرَاتِ, and you'll be tested for loss of lives, loss of fruits, loss of benefits, loss of goods, loss of people. You'll be tested by these things. وَبَشِّرِ الصَّابِرِينَ, but give glad tidings to those who are patient. الَّذِينَ إِذَا أَصَابَتْهُمْ مُصِيبَةٌ, who when afflicted by a calamity, they say, إِنَّا لِلَّهِ وَإِنَّا إِلَيْهِ رَاجِعُونَ, we are from Allah, and to Allah we shall return. My return is to Allah, and Allah will reward me. All this difficulty that I've been through in my life, all these hardships that I've been through in my life, Allah will elevate me, and Allah will reward me. And this is what will make your patience easy. أُولَٰئِكَ الَّذِينَ أُولَٰئِكَ عَلَيْهِمْ صَلَوَاتٌ مِّن رَبِّهِمْ وَرَحْمَةٌ, they are the ones that Allah's blessings and mercy is upon them. وَأُولَٰئِكَ هُمُ الْمُهْتَدُونَ, and they are the guided ones. Somebody told me, brothers and sisters, and this is the blessing of having a connection with somebody from a young age. Young man, he was about 19 or 20, he told me something. He said, Shaykh, there was one thing that I heard in Maktab class. Just one thing I heard when I was a kid. I was maybe 6, 7 years old, and my teacher told me, Maktab teachers, listen very closely, how you influence the heart and the future of the children that you teach. And parents, listen. This young man, he was just graduated from high school. He told me, I started going through a lot of depression and sadness, but I was able to cope, and it didn't overcome me. I said, how is that? He said, my teacher in Maktab told me, life is a test. Allah is testing us. And He just wants to see, when you go through difficulty, He just wants to see what's your faith. He just wants to see that you're going to be patient, and He's going to reward you for it. It's such a simple thing, brothers and sisters. But knowing this, that life is a test from Allah, and not knowing it, is the difference between somebody committing suicide, somebody giving up on life, or somebody actually then thriving after that and saying, you know what, I can make it. Just this, that a child from a young age knows just this simple matter. You know what, life is a test. Difficulties are going to come, but when you are resilient, Allah is going to reward you, and you're going to propel higher. You're going to, like they say, the eagle. Somebody said to the eagle, don't be afraid of the strong winds, because those winds that come to you, oh eagle, is just going to push you higher up. When the strong wind comes to the eagle, that the eagle just uses that wind to actually propel higher. And that's exactly what the winds in our life, as adversity and difficulty and tests, this is what it is. It's not something that's going to push you down. It's something that if you glide through it, if you glide and navigate through it with wisdom and guidance, it will propel you higher, knowing these ayat. That is why, brothers and sisters, these wisdoms, these are game changers in our lives. Just to know that life is a test. Just to know that with every difficulty, Allah will reward you. This young man, he amazed me when he told me this. He said, all I remember is that one word from my teacher. He probably remembers many words from his teacher, but one word. He told me, he said, you said life is a test. Allah is just seeing if you're going to be able to do it, and then He will reward you. And he says, that made when I went through difficulties when I was in college and I was away from home for the first time and all that, he said, those words, they stayed with me, and that was the game changer for me. Otherwise, he said, if I didn't know that, he said, oh, okay, I'm going through all these problems. Oh my God, what's happening to me? Allah cursed me. Oh, maybe it's my religion. Oh, maybe it's this. Maybe I'm a bad person. Maybe I'm being cursed. Maybe you're just living life. Maybe you're going through life as Allah meant it to be, because this whole life is a test. Some people, they say everything is azab, right? And they have يَظُنُّونَ بِاللَّهِ ظَنَّ السَّوْءِ. They have suspicions against Allah, as if Allah is a bad man in the clouds with a lightning bolt ready to strike them. Having evil opinion of Allah. Oh, Allah is doing this to me. Allah is punishing me. Allah is this. مَا يَفْعَلُ اللَّهُ بِعَذَابِكُمْ. Why would Allah want to? Look at this ayah. مَا يَفْعَلُ اللَّهُ بِعَذَابِكُمْ. Why does Allah want to punish you? Allah has nothing else to do? He wants to sit there and throw lightning bolts at people? Okay, you didn't pray one namaz, lightning bolt. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, this is a wrong opinion that people have, that everything has to be a punishment. Here Allah is saying, أَحَسِبَ النَّاسِ, do people think, أَن يَقُولُوا آمَنَّا أَن يُتْرَكُوا أَن يَقُولُوا آمَنَّا وَهُمْ لَا يُفْتَنُونَ, that they're going to say we believe and they will not be tested? وَلَنَبْلُوَنَّكُمْ, we will most definitely test you, O Muslims. This is not because you committed a crime. This is not because you committed a sin. This is not because you did something wrong. This is because this is the nature of life. This is the nature of existence in this world. This dunya is darul ibtila. It's the abode of tests. It's the abode of examinations. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Hazrat Tanvi Rahmatullah said this. He said, Allah ta'ala never punishes a believer. Then he says that what about those believers that on the day of judgment they're sinful and Allah puts them in the hellfire? He said, that's not ta'adhib. That's tahdhib. That's not punishment. That's rectification. That's purification. Allah doesn't punish a believer. Allah purifies a believer. There's no punishment for a believer. Anybody who thinks that believers get punishment, this is not correct. This is Shaykh Ashraf Ali Thanwi rahimahullah. He says the punishment of a believer in hellfire, even if he goes there, it's not ta'adhib. It's not adhab. It's tahdhib. Tahdhib, which means purification. Allah puts, just like you put the gold inside of the fire to purify it of all the rust and the impurities. This is what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala does to a believer if He puts him in the fire or they puts him in difficulty. This is to purify him. This is to elevate him. This is to refine him. It's not to punish him, degrade him, humiliate him. Yes, those people that, have committed, injustices, then they will receive the punishment of their injustice. But a random person, without injustice, without zulm, without harming other people, this is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is giving you the consequence of your action. But that's فَمَن يَعْمَلْ مِثْقَالَ ذَرَّةٍ خَيْرًا يَرَى. Anyone who does an atom's weight of good shall see it, and anyone who does an atom's weight of evil shall see it. That's also not punishment. What is that called? That's called recompense. That's not called punishment. Do you understand? Punishing is you committed a crime, right? And you're doing the time, right? And the reality of what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala does, Allah recompenses a believer. It's aqibah. It's maybe called uquba. You can call it uquba. Uquba is something that you have done. Maybe you did an injustice. Maybe you hurt someone. Maybe you killed someone. Now you will get the recompense. You'll get the recompensation of what the crime that you committed. But a person who's a believer, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala always wants khair for that person. Now if we understand this, inshallah, many of the difficulties and many of the hardships and many of the things that we go through, when we know that Allah is testing us to see, and Allah is testing us to reward us and to see our patience, inshallah, then we won't become perturbed. We won't become, negative. We won't become bitter with the difficulties of life. Rather, we will look at every difficulty of life to be what? That this is my opportunity to show Allah. This is my opportunity to show that I'm going to be patient, Ya Allah. That in difficulties, what are we? In difficulties, we are graceful. Patience, graceful in difficulties. Humble, graceful. Ya Allah, give me the patience so I can get your reward and I can get your pleasure. And then in good times, we are grateful. Thank you, Allah, for the blessings that you have given me. And inshallah, with this patience and gratitude, this is how we'll inshallah reach Allah Ta'ala. May Allah give us tawfiq to understand what has been said. Wa akhiru da'wana alhamdulillah.